Hey, Stephanie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Do your friends call you Steph or Stephanie or something else?
Both. It doesn't really
Okay,
matter to me.
got it. Got it. What
As
does
long
your
as it's
mom
not
call you?
Steffi.
Steffi.
I don't like Steffi.
Funny. Yeah. I don't blame you.
Um, it depends on the tone. Like if
Ah,
she's irritated with me, it's Stephanie. But if it's
okay.
just an everyday, it's Steph.
Stephanie, get over here right now.
Yeah.
Clean your room.
Yep.
All right. So, for those listeners who don't know you, you're a New Hampshire hairdresser who focuses on color. You're an
Mhm.
educator and salon owner, and you are a self proclaimed crazy plant lady.
Yes, I am a crazy plant lady.
Before we get to the crazy plant lady element of your persona, what do you call somebody who's from New Hampshire? Is it a New Hampshirean?
I don't think they have anything except like they'll call us Hicks or like we're from the backwoods or something. But no, there's no like fun way to say it.
There must be something. I'm going to look it up right now. Donovan is
Okay.
going to pause. Actually, I'm going to make this a test for you,
Oh boy.
Stephanie. I'm going to give you two options, and then you're going to choose which one is the correct one. So, someone from New Hampshire is known as a New Hampshireite.
Okay.
Oh, that's A. Or B. Somebody from New Hampshire is known as a New Hampshirean, which was my guess. All right. So,
Oh,
New Hampshireite or New Hampshirean?
I like the second one, but I feel like people would say the first one.
You are correct.
All right. But I like the second one way better.
A is correct. Me too. Well, that's the one I made up out of thin
All
air.
right.
And I'm glad that wasn't correct because it sounds very awkward. It's you're a New Hampshireite. So there you
Yes.
go. So we've all learned something here on
Yeah.
the Okay, so crazy plant lady,
Mhm.
self-proclaimed. I'm not calling you that. I'm not insulting you. That's I don't want the listeners to think I'm mean or something. So you're a self-proclaimed crazy plant lady. I've researched you. You have a salon with beautiful plants in it, and I
Yes.
assume that that has something to do with you being a crazy plant lady. So tell us, how did this come about? How did you learn so much about plants?
Probably the pandemic. You know, we all got into a hobby.
Mm.
Some people made bread. I got really into plants, and we had a couple in the salon, and I would just kind of change them out every year because they would die. And then once I started learning and I started having a larger collection at home, I decided it would be nice to bring them into the salon. And then it's just a little bit of an addiction, I guess. And so I was like, well, there's a place I could put them, and there's a place I could put them. And now I want to say we have maybe like 60 plants in the salon.
Oh my gosh.
They're on tops of all the stations. We have some that grow on the ceiling. They're all around the shampoo bowls. I try and make it not overwhelming or tacky, but yeah, they're everywhere.
So this is a topic that I readily admit to know very little about,
Mhm.
but I love plants. I like looking at the plants, and I notice plants. If you look um, right over my shoulder here, you're going to
Mhm.
see a plant, and I don't know if you can tell or not, depending on how good our internet connection is. There are some brown leaves on that plant.
Uh,
Can you
mhm.
tell?
I can't from here. It
Okay,
looks good.
good. So I have two of these types of plants in my office, and I like them a lot. They've been in there for years. They've been in here for years, but they're not doing well right now. So
Mhm.
when you said you changed them out, is it, or you used to change them out?
Yes.
Is that because you were not doing a good job taking care of them,
Yes.
or because, okay, so
Yeah.
they're
I just didn't know
supposed
what
to
I was
last?
doing. Yes. Yeah, they're supposed to last for like 20, 30 years,
Oh
I
my God.
guess.
Wow.
Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them have a very long lifespan. And
Hmm.
then I would just come in, take them from the nursery, put them in a pot with no drainage, and wonder why it was just dying. So I learned a
Okay.
lot.
And you learned a lot probably over YouTube.
Yeah, Google, TikTok, YouTube,
Yeah.
wherever I could. I'm a big Googler. I love Google. So,
Yeah.
like, I will Google everything all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, I learned a
Hmm.
lot from that.
Very good. And 60 plants, I imagine from a maintenance standpoint, who maintains these plants? Is it you or somebody at the
Mhm.
salon?
Me, for the most
Okay.
part. There, we do have one. One of our assistant managers has started kind of taking care of them because they start to look kind of crappy. But we have 60 there. I probably have 60 or 70 at my house, and then we do have some in the studios as well.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Okay.
it's like a half a day job to take care of all of them.
Half a day every how often?
2 to 3 weeks.
Every 2 to 3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah,
So the plants in my office, I was instructed to water them every 2 weeks.
that's a good.
So
That's good.
maybe it's the same kind that you have. I don't know. I don't
Most
know
plants
enough to
like
say.
every 2 weeks.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's talk about you. Um, you've been in this industry for a little bit, and you've done
Mhm.
really great things. So why don't you just tell us how you found yourself here, starting with where you're from and how you got into this industry.
So I'm from a small town in New Hampshire, Candia, and I've never lived anywhere other than New Hampshire. I do love New England. Every time I travel somewhere else, I'm very happy to come home. So I was working with he's my now husband, but at the time we were just dating. He worked in the wholesale part of a produce company, and I worked in the retail part. And I was 19, and it was a super fun job, but my part of it wasn't what I was looking for career wise. So we had kind of like chatted about it, and I was like, "Oh, hair school looks like fun." And within 2 weeks, I was enrolled, and I lucked out because I really did love it. Um, and then from hair school, I worked at two employee based salons within the 4 years. And then I rented for another like 3 years. And I was kind of looking for another challenge, and owning was kind of that next step. So then I opened a small 1,000 square foot salon with 5 chairs. We outgrew very quickly. And now we are in our current location with 22 chairs, and then a studio location across the street with a barber shop.
Very interesting. Okay, so I want to talk about the industry as you experience it with your salons, with your hairdressers and your clients and stuff in New Hampshire
Mm-hmm.
versus elsewhere in the country. I imagine that you travel for hair shows.
Yes.
Okay. So what is different and unique about the way the industry takes place in New Hampshire?
We're behind. So, studios have been coming across the country for years and years, which we would see when we traveled. And you get back to New Hampshire, and even in Massachusetts, Vermont, there was almost nothing. Massachusetts had like one or two up until I would say a year and a half ago, maybe. And now they're starting to pop up.
Okay.
But yeah, we're a little slower when it comes to that kind of stuff, even
Okay,
with
and that's
trends.
fine. That's fine. What about client behavior trends? The different services that are popular in New Hampshire.
I want to say like we're up with the trends now, but it took a little longer. I think now that social media plays such a big part, we're not as behind. But before Instagram and TikTok became a really big thing, we were the land of like root retouches, traditional foils, and like perms. Not that any of those
Perms,
things are bad. It's
right?
just when people were doing more lived-in work, we were a little bit behind, getting that. So
Mm-hmm.
I even vivid work as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
So I often, when I speak to somebody who has done well in the industry and they're in a small town, oftentimes they complain about the the education level of the hairdressers in that small town.
mhm.
Have you experienced this? And what have you done? I mean, you're an educator, so
Mhm.
has that been a place where you've spent a lot of your time? Is trying to get your hairdressers up to speed because that you're not in a big city where
Mhm.
there's a lot of creative juices flowing and collaboration with people who are coming in from different areas or countries.
It was slow to start. I would say I started educating in 2016, and you did have a small group of people that were like super hungry for that in our area, but there were a lot of people that were standoffish. And again, I think social media had a huge part to play in that, where people started to see that education and what clients were seeing, what they wanted, and you kind of had to have those skills. So I think maybe a couple years ago we still could fall under that, like old school type of thinking, but I do think now people really want to be up with the times and they want
Hmm.
those new clients coming in.
Hmm.
So we
Good.
just took on last year two more veteran hairstylists that were in a salon with like-minded people, and coming to our salon where we have a lot of young people, they've just been so inspired, and which they've told me that it's just so nice to, they kind of lost that fire. And so
Hmm.
having that back because they're seeing us on social media and us trying to learn everything that we can. And so it's kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, that's super cool. So, what are you seeing behind the chair these days with your clients, with client behavior? We've got, and I'm kind of taking us out a little bit with a high altitude view. We're now 3.5 years or so post COVID. Actually, we're 4 years post COVID. Almost.
Wild.
Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about this. So we're recording this for the listener's sake. We're recording this in mid March, March 19th. This
Mm-hmm.
episode might drop in like 4 or 5 weeks or so. And it was actually March, I think, 13th that Santa Monica closed. So the city of Santa Monica, I believe, was the first one to close in California. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think it was city of Beverly Hills and then city of LA and then the state all closed salons and restaurants, um, right around where we are now. So
Mm-hmm.
very interesting to think about this. I'm having PTSD,
I know.
in fact, because I don't know if you were paying attention all the way over in New Hampshire, but California shut down 3 times over the course of
Yeah.
2020 and into 2021 even. I think we were
Mm-hmm.
the only ones. New York City had similar sort of shutdowns, but California State shut down for massive periods of time,
Yeah.
and so it was horrible here. We have
Mm-hmm.
salons in other states, Texas and Colorado, and they opened after like 6 weeks, and were totally fine through the rest of 2020. But California ignored all that. Um, so here we are, 4 years after
Wild.
the initial COVID shutdowns, and all the sorts of ebbs and flows of client behavior, and this is going to happen, and the industry is changing, permanently in this direction, permanently in that direction, and so where are we now with client behavior from what you're seeing behind the chair?
I try not to be pessimistic, but the client behavior has become worse, in my opinion. Along with society, the lack of empathy and caring how things are delivered, or any type of reasonable conversations, it just escalates so quickly. And I don't know where that comes from. If people just, you know, with all of us trying to take care of each other during COVID, that people went really far the other way, or, but I will say as a salon owner, even with like we're heavy on the renter side, but we're kind of a hybrid where we'll still protect our stylists if they want us to. Uh, we fired a lot of clients from the salon in the past couple of years that because of their behavior. I mean, like stuff I wouldn't expect. So
Yeah,
that way has been rough, I
yeah.
think. And again,
So
I don't want to be pessimistic, but
it's
that's
not
what I've noticed.
pessimistic, it's factual,
Yeah.
and it's okay, and of course we learn things from being factual, even if it's not positive.
Hmm.
Well, especially if it's not positive, you don't learn much from things that are always working, right? But what you're saying is that clients have become more difficult, and I've certainly heard this, and I've certainly seen this, not in the salon necessarily, but in society in general. Of course,
Hmm.
there's kind of a heightened sensitivity. People are a little more sensitive. They're a little more. Their outrage is a little more trigger sensitive,
Hmm.
and I think it stems, from a lot of the stuff that's happened in the last few years. The political environment obviously has suffered from the same thing, where you get a lot of outrage on both sides,
Hmm.
and like zero tolerance for anyone else's opinion, right?
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is all the people who were previously all about freedom of speech are now all about, not freedom of speech,
Yeah. Censorship.
unless censorship, and you can have the freedom to speak as long as you agree with me, and if you don't
Yeah.
agree with me, then you're not free to speak. You don't exist as a human, in my opinion.
Hmm.
People say things like that. And so you have a lot of that that has trickled into the customer service space 100%. And you bring that up, and it is a fact of society at the moment. I think human nature is going to eventually bring us back to something that is a little bit more conscious of others,
I hope so.
and yeah, and more of a kind of a peaceful, harmonious sort of interaction with people. And I also want to say it's really incremental. I mean, it's not like when I walk outside, people are yelling at me and
Mm-mm.
at each other. It's just incremental. But for a salon, like you mentioned, whereas previously, maybe 2019, you may have had to fire maybe one client a year. All of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, you got to fire 10,
Yeah.
right? Because they're just difficult to deal with, and the customer service element has become more difficult. I have a friend who owns a coffee shop, and he's gotten a lot of customers, and if their coffee is not 100% correct in the last like 2 or 3 years, they just go into outrage mode, as if it
It's
was like
wild.
a personal affront to them.
Yeah. And like if my coffee's wrong, I'm like, I'm so sorry. Do you think I could just like get a little bit? I'm so sorry. Never mind. I'm just gonna drink it. It's fine. Like I don't even want to bother
Same,
them.
same. And it's like, by the way, the that same coffee cost me $2.75
Yeah.
in 2019. I'm now paying $6 for it.
Oh yeah.
It's the same coffee, and it's not done as well as it was done in 2019
Yeah.
because the coffee shop is struggling to find anyone to work there.
Yep.
And when they get someone to work there, the person who wants to work there is all about like work life balance, and so they don't show up on time, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't listen when they're getting trained,
Mm-hmm.
and all sorts of other things. But I digress. I still get the coffee. I too. If it's like, if it's the completely wrong coffee, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna say something,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna apologize
Yeah.
profusely for complaining about it. Yeah, I'm the same.
Oh yeah. And that I think that the whole change in the workforce spans for like every industry as well,
one Hundred
which
percent.
is good and bad. Like I'm down to try and understand it and work with it, but yeah, it's very different.
Yeah. So normally I wait to the end of the episode to ask for hair horror stories, and the hair horror stories can span, some technical mistake that you made or a hairdresser made in the salon, all the way to a customer service horror story. So I'm going to go ahead and solicit one of these customer service horror stories from your salon. You want to give us one?
I would love to. And so I want to say it was last year. Now we have real security cameras, like a security company, which in our state you can't legally record set like talking, or everybody has to sign something. We also have these
Audio. You
little,
you can do
yes,
video, not audio.
right, because it stores for like 6 to 8 weeks. You can have like those little wise cameras that only keep it for like 24 to 48 hours. You can have, because it's not really recording, so you can have sound on that, which has kind of helped me out in this situation. So we are known for having a different staff dog at our salon every day.
Oh,
And we have a schedule, and it's great. We do have people that are afraid of dogs, and we're super respectful of that. We'll put the dog in the back till they're gone. We're totally willing to work with people, but it's something most of our clients like. So this woman came in and she sat down, and we had one of our little, I think it's like a Jack Russell there that day. So it's a small dog. And she's like, I really don't want the dog near me, whatever. So the receptionist is like, we understand. Let me go put it in the back. Whatever ended up happening, the dog came near her. She didn't, and I think it put its paw like on her leg and then just promptly took off after like 1 second,
and
which
by
I
the
could see
way,
on the,
of course, the dog went right up
yeah,
to the
had to,
person who didn't want the
yep,
dog around, right? That's just so animals.
a
It's
hundred
like they
percent.
know. They know.
Yeah, she was like, "You don't want me here. I'm going to be here."
Yeah.
Never mind the like 40 other people in the place. She
Right.
wants this one. So that was the one and only interaction. That's bad on us because we should have put the dog in the back. So I would be willing to, you're upset about it. Tell me about it. Let's give you a free product or just make you happy because we're big on customer service. This woman lost it. Like, and there's no allergy, there's no fear. She compared it to being sexually assaulted, to the R word. Said she wanted to
Oh,
punch one of our stylists in the face,
well,
swore at them, and then went. Now, the stylist comes up to get her, brings her back not knowing this. She comes back up after her roots are on and then keeps going, swearing, yelling. So they finish the service and let her out. They tell me what happened, and I'm like, that's not acceptable. As long as this renter is okay with losing the client, we're going to fire her from the salon. So I go to call her and I say, I would just want to talk about what happened yesterday. She doesn't know have the sound recorded, or
yeah,
not recorded, but that I could hear it.
yep,
And so she gives me a completely different story. So I
of
just say to
course.
her, okay, I totally understand that that's how you feel, but here's what I could hear on the audio. And she just was like, well, fine. And like, just, she was gone. That was it.
Yeah,
But the scene that was in the salon and how the stylist felt was just completely inappropriate. So that's
right.
I think that's our biggest horror story. Just we've never had anyone say, I want to punch that person in the face, like right there
Yeah,
in
that's
reception.
physically threatening. And it's one
Yeah.
thing to act belligerently, it's something else to physically threaten because I think all of a sudden you're crossing a legal line.
Yeah.
I'm glad she didn't get legal with you when you said that here's what I heard on the audio because
Hmm.
if she was
Luckily, we
an
do have it
attorney,
posted. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, sure.
because we use yeah, there's like a little loophole where we can have that. So we've always kept that little audio there just to
Sure.
cover our
Right.
butts. Yeah. But so that's probably the worst client story.
Okay. That was a good one. That was a good horror story. And we talk about these because our listeners run salons, they work in salons, they're in the industry, they watch things happening, and these things happen to everybody. You know,
Hmm.
they definitely happen. In the 24 years that I've been in this business, a lot of crazy things have happened. So
Yeah.
it's just part of dealing with the public. Is what you get.
Yeah.
So if you can get through a career without anything like that happening, then you just got lucky.
Yeah. I've had a client see, she was older and I had gotten like my sleeve done. And she actually hit me upside the head when she saw it. Like, what are you
Wait, hold on.
thinking?
Your sleeve, as in tattoos?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
like
Yeah, your
this.
arm. Yep.
Yeah. So she saw it for the first time and was like, "What are you? Why would you even do that?" And like, right?
Hit you
Yeah,
upside the head. So
yeah,
Stephanie has her hand raised, and she's doing one of those motions where you hit
yeah,
somebody upside the head.
yes. Like right. And I was so trained that clients are right at that point that I
Mm.
still took her. I should have been like, "You can leave, like get out," but I didn't know what to do. I was so stunned that I still took her and took her for years after that.
Well, I mean, did she ever do anything that disrespectful again? Obviously, that's bad, and it's like
Hmm.
Jesus, you know. But was her behavior better, or did she regularly do things like that?
Nothing physical, but she regularly said things that were just incredibly inappropriate.
Mm. Yeah.
So eventually, she wasn't my client anymore.
It's important to have boundaries. We often talk about boundaries on the show. We talk about boundaries in the conversations that we have. And it's one thing to have boundaries and
Mhm.
to post them or try to communicate them. It's quite something else to enforce them in the moment when something very uncomfortable is happening.
Mhm.
Because it's not only uncomfortable to get hit upside the head by
Yeah.
your client, but it's also very uncomfortable to then enforce your boundaries and look at your client in the eye and say, I'm sorry, Donna.
Mhm.
And I'm just picking that out of the blue. Sorry, Donna's, if any listeners named Donna. Sorry, Donna. I'm sorry, but I don't, accept that,
Yeah.
that disrespect, and you've crossed the line, and I'd like to ask you to leave. That's very uncomfortable.
It's so
most
hard.
most people are not capable of doing that.
No, I wasn't. I can do it for somebody else. But when it came to
Yeah,
like me doing it, I at that point in my career did not know what to do.
yeah, something like that takes practice. Even if it
Yeah.
takes practice, even after practice, still uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. So what other boundaries? This is kind of an interesting topic, and it seems like you're uniquely qualified to discuss such a thing. Any other sort of um, client misbehaviors that you've experienced in, crossing boundaries and things?
I can think of two off the top of my head. One is I had a woman in her mid 60s. Um, every time she came in, she would show me an explicit photo of whatever man she was seeing at the time, which, I
Wow.
mean, the last appointment, I think she like opened with that. And I just was, I go, so we're just going to start right off with this. We actually had like a nickname for her. It was Dick Pic Lady. I don't know if
No
that can go on the
way.
podcast, but yeah, it
That's
was just,
amazing. So dick pic ladies on your books, and
mhm.
do you tell the other you tell your coworkers that dick pics coming in,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and
They
like
all knew.
everyone's ready when she comes in,
Well,
and
because she was a little loud about it too. So then people are just listening to the story, which I'm like, I don't care if you're, 25, 45, 65, whatever. Like, it's
yeah,
just in the middle of a salon is not the place for
that's
that.
amazing. No,
Yeah.
of course not. And I mean, it's funny. And somebody like me, I've been running a business, and we've gotten bigger. We've got about 70 employees and about
Hmm.
3,000 beauty professionals, and we're in the state of California, and the state of
Hmm.
California has all these rules. Every year they put out more laws based on sexual harassment, workforce, boundaries. Really, I mean,
Hmm.
there are laws, there are boundaries in the form of laws, and the attorneys love to sue about this kind of stuff. So I'm super sensitive about this, and that's what she's doing is actually sexual harassment,
Yeah.
and is
I can see
illegal,
how.
and it might be in New Hampshire too. It's just I'm more familiar with California, but
Yeah.
you can't do stuff like that, and
No.
in California, if a client was coming in, let's say I'm a salon owner that had employees as beauty
Hmm.
professionals, and there was a client who's coming in with dick pics all the time, and my beauty professional was like, I really don't want to see him anymore, and I'm her boss. It's actually illegal for me to say that she needs to keep seeing that client because I'm
Hmm.
not protecting her in the
I get that.
workplace.
Yep.
um, so it's
What an
super
odd
interesting.
conversation.
I know I mean, but that's where this topic kind of goes into these interesting little branches. So
Hmm.
sorry, I kind of digress there. So your
Oh, no,
dick
that's.
pic client comes in, and
Hmm.
and the funny thing about this, I'll just say one more thing, and then you can tell us how this wrapped up. I'm dying to know, and I'm sure the listeners are too. One thing that makes this so difficult is that within any work environment, you have some people who are not sensitive about it, and they actually kind of enjoy it, and it's fun to
Hmm.
talk about. And you have other people who are massively sensitive about it, and to them it is sexual harassment, and such an affront that is to be traumatic for
Hmm.
them for whatever reason. And this is one thing that makes customer service and work environments so difficult, is you have this huge variety of people, together trying to work and accomplish something. So I'm sure it was no different in your salon, that some of the people in there were like, "Oh, dick pic lady's coming in,
Yeah.
awesome, can't wait," and others, did not feel that way.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm a big people pleaser, still working on it. So it's not that it offended me or anything like that, but it just got to a point where it was like 2 years later, and I was like, I'm honestly not that interested in like, show me something else. I don't know, I'm just not that interested. But
Right.
so I just kept letting it, and even this is the funniest thing is, um, she lived alone and she had been through some stuff, and I knew she was lonely, and so I would like kind of complain to my husband about it, who's also a barber in this industry, and
Mm.
he would even say, well, you're not going to like fire her, right? Like, she lives alone. I'm like, I know I'm not going to fire her, but like, how do I get it to stop? And eventually I raised my price and she just never came back.
Oh,
So that's all it took, was raising my prices to
do you
still a very
remember?
low
Very
price for,
interesting.
yeah.
Did you raise your price for her only, or for everyone?
The saddest thing about this, maybe it's not sad, but I don't know, pathetic maybe, is a lot of my longtime clients, I didn't raise their prices when I raised everyone else's. So she was probably one of the lowest priced people that I
Mm.
had. So I didn't even put it up to my regular price. I put it up like $20. And yeah, that was it, which was
20
a,
$20 is not as much as your regular price, so it was just a little bit of a raise.
it was, I think she was paying like $40 under what it should have been
Oh
for
yeah, yeah,
years.
yeah,
And so I did it like half. And yeah, she left and I was like, all right, well, that's
yeah.
fine. That was the 13 years later, that's how long she was with me. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Wow. Lot of dicks.
A
Lot of
lot of
pics.
dicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's.
because maybe her eyesight wasn't as good, there were some photos of her in there that I accidentally saw that
Oh God
because she was
bless.
swiping. I know. I was like, oh God. Yep. So
None of that is comfortable. I can't
no.
imagine any of that as being something that you would choose to see, but that's just me. That was a great one. Wow. Donovan,
Yeah.
that was one of our best hair horror stories ever, I would
Yep.
say. The dick pic horror story.
I'm
That
glad I could
almost
hold that
deserves its
title.
own episode.
Yeah. We could
And
dive
then we
right
could
because
put it in the title. So if the listeners like the idea of listening about to dick pic clients, then they can. And if not, they don't have to.
and the weirdest thing was that there was quite an age gap on this too with the people she was seeing, which made me think there's a whole underground, maybe it's not even underground group of people that like women double their age, which is fine. It's just I didn't know there were that many people.
Right. Interesting. We are fully wading into a different
Yeah,
realm of
totally.
conversation, which I don't mind for the next 60 seconds. I
Great.
I assume, as being someone who is not of that age, I assume that there is a there's probably an underground and a not so underground element
Yeah.
here, and I assume that there may be kind of a for hire element.
Yeah, there could
I
be.
mean, I know of people who are on the older side and they have their certain kicks, and they satisfy these kicks by paying people to do certain things, and so that's certainly part of it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? But it was a wild ride.
Wow. The fact that you didn't know is good though, because at least when she destroyed the boundary by showing you the pics, she didn't keep going by explaining these relationships, which might
Oh,
have been
she did.
grosser.
No,
Oh
she did.
no, she did?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Oh God.
I've never put on a root retouch faster than I was with her. Yeah.
That's
There were
funny.
some things that the mental pictures, yeah. So it was a whole thing. I don't know
Okay.
what she was going through, but yeah.
Okay, so you never had, back to the boundaries and what we do about them. So it was too difficult to enforce the boundary. And
Yeah.
so you just kind of let her go, because you weren't so sensitive about it.
No, I just was more like, ugh.
Yeah, got it. But I imagine that if it kept going and got grosser, you would have had to actually do the very uncomfortable step of
Yeah.
saying, you know what, Donna, I really don't want to see things like that.
Yeah. Like I was just waiting for a video or something, like for her every appointment. I'm like, well, what are we going to get into? So if the
Yeah.
video had popped up, then I would have been like, all right, here's my boundary. I'm just not interested.
So this is actually a pretty good segue into something that I like talking about, which is similar but less gross, and that is political conversation in the chair, in the salon. There's different environments. So if it's a salon where there's, multiple chairs around, and so everyone can kind of hear each other, that makes it maybe a little bit more sensitive political conversation. If you get a client who is very left or very right and wants everyone to know about it, they can basically throw a wet rag on the whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of have to do something about it. If you're in a studio or there aren't a lot of people around you, then you have a little more flexibility. Maybe you agree, so you don't mind, but if you disagree, then all of a sudden they're trampling on your boundaries there,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have to decide: am I going to sit here and listen to all this stuff that is abhorrent to me? Because this guy likes Trump or this guy likes Biden or whatever, and or am I going to say, please, for the love of God, stop talking about this? So, have you ever had to ever had to draw boundaries from a political standpoint?
Not really. I mean, for myself, I'm pretty open with my clients of all. I haven't had anyone that's like super, super left or right to the point where you're like, all right, this isn't really real what you're talking about, luckily. But I have a lot of clients that have opposite views of my own, and we talk about it all the time because
Mm,
we usually come to common ground, which is super cool, I think.
yeah,
I
nice.
am of the mindset that the more you respectfully talk about it, the more you can understand each other. That being said, we have a very large, loud salon, so voices don't carry that way.
Mm,
So we haven't run into that necessarily. During COVID, we did have to put signs on our stations that just said we're not talking about it. We're not talking about the politics of this. We're not talking about vaccines and who got one and who didn't. And because our salon was a little split and we respected everybody's viewpoint on that, so we kind of had to put up these signs for a majority of our clients, and that helped a lot.
So I love that. You put up signs at the
Hmm.
stations. And so tell us more about these signs. Are these like kind of standing plastic things you get on Amazon and you print something out on paper and put it in there?
Hmm.
Like, how did you do it?
We just we printed out a bunch of like little, almost like, what are those cards, like note cards,
Mm-hmm.
and that size, and we just taped them to the mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it didn't
And
look tacky, but yeah, they were there.
and what did it say as exactly as you can remember?
It said something about like, in the climate we're in a community space, and we're choosing to not talk about people's vaccine statuses, or I forget. It was well written, and it was short, so they wouldn't get
Mm-hmm.
bored. But it was,
Mm-hmm.
and then if somebody did kind of start, they can blame it on me or the salon, because that's always my thing, is protecting, whether they're renters or employed stylists, protecting them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we came up with that idea together. COVID did a lot of good for us team wise. So we were able to talk about everything all the time, which was really nice. And so that's what we came up with, and they could just point to that sign and be like, "Hey, I'm sorry, the owner or the majority of the team or whatever it is, we've decided not to have that conversation in the salon."
I think that's great. I mean, you used the phrase community space,
Hmm.
and you basically said this is not the place for that, right?
Yes.
And but there was a lot of a lot there was a lot of people conflated the idea of like communal harmony with the sense that activism should be exercised everywhere,
Hmm.
right? The last
Yeah.
like 3 years.
Yep.
And if activism was not taking place, then somehow whoever was in charge of the area was, complicit in something horrible.
Hmm.
And I have been saying for a long time that there's a time and a place for certain things, and I think harmony was not in vogue there for a while, and I think it's
No.
gone back to maybe being in vogue. But that was a great thing that you did, was basically put up a little sign that said this is a harmonious space,
Hmm.
and you can believe whatever you want, just don't make it uncomfortable for everyone else.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
So, and
love it.
we're very communicative with our clients, especially when that was happening. We put out a lot of Instagram posts and stories, just guiding people through it and where our thoughts were with that, and kind of trying to make everyone know that we do care about everybody's opinion on it, but here's what we have to do for our community space.
Hmm.
And our clients really took that very well. No matter what they thought or what they believed, they respected it. It was kind of cool to see.
Very cool. So you posted something on your gram on March 8th about your gram behavior, your Instagram behavior, going back a number of years. And I really, really liked it. You talked about your Instagram journey from kind of when you started to when you kind of got a little bit tired of it. Do you know which post I'm talking about?
Was it the one where I was going to try again on
Yes, it
Instagram?
was the
Yeah.
one. Yes,
Okay.
it was the one where you kind of was over. You were over it for a period of time, and I think you
Hmm.
opened a salon, so like you were swamped and probably, um, lost focus,
Hmm.
or at least you were focused on the salon, which other things started falling by the wayside, which is totally reasonable. And then you're kind of back in it and doing things. Do you
Hmm.
mind talking about that a little bit?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. I started Instagram. I don't know. I don't even know why. I think it looked, when I would post a hair picture here or there that was vivid colors, I would connect with a lot of other stylists. And I just thought that was so cool. And so I don't know what I was looking to get out of it, but it kind of grew really quickly. And I have a very addictive, I was diagnosed with OCD, so that kind of goes along with it, that I get super focused on one thing. And I will do that thing to whatever completion I think it is, whether I think I've mastered it or I'm bored now or whatever it is. And Instagram was kind of like that. Once it started to get hard to grow, I kind of lost interest, and we had just opened a new salon. So,
Mm.
uh, cut to now, which is like 5 years later from when I kind of gave up on it, and not gave up, but just didn't put in the same work. I was looking to start educating more on empathetic business rather than color. And I wanted to connect more. I missed connecting with people. And I have a lot of people reach out to me in DMs about education. And I just was kind of like, this was such a great avenue to get your point across before. Why not just learn it again and put some effort into it
Hmm.
if that's what you want to do. So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
did.
And so, about how long ago was it that you re-engaged on a consistent basis with IG?
Right after Christmas. Right,
Okay,
but
so
I've yeah.
3 months.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it Instagram only or TikTok also?
Oh, I wish I could get more into TikTok. I'm so bad with that. Mermeg always is on me about that. Like, get on, show your face, talk, go on TikTok, and it's just so hard for me.
Yeah.
So I don't put a lot. My TikTok is more plants than hair,
Hmm.
um, and so, but I do need to get into it a little bit more. But it's mostly the gram for me.
So, do you have plant people that follow you on TikTok? Are you like
Yes.
a crazy plant lady? Like, do you have an active account that about plants?
It was active. I think I've got like 19,000 followers on it. And I built a little plant community, but then I would go back and forth between plants and hair. And now it's just sitting there. I think it was
Would
more hair the last
Would
time I
you
checked.
consider yourself a plant fluencer?
Maybe I was.
That's the second word that I've made up in this
Yeah,
episode. In this
I like
short
that.
episode, we have New Hampshirean
Yeah, I do
and
like
a
that
plant
better than.
fluencer. Very funny.
Nice.
So TikTok, I mean, you may TikTok may not exist in the United States in a little bit.
Hmm.
There is a law that's going through, and it seems like everybody in Congress likes it. President Biden likes it. Donald Trump likes it. Everybody likes the idea of shutting down TikTok. So it may not be a thing in 6 months to a year, but
Mm.
we'll see. Um, okay, so back to your IG kind of re-engagement.
Hmm.
Have you experienced a commensurate kind of uptick in your activity there? Like, are your followers back and excited for Hair Princess Steph and
Hmm.
communicating with you?
It seems it. I've gotten some really nice messages. For the first time since 2018, my following has grown.
Hmm.
I do a lot through DMs. I have two to about three. I'm finalizing the last one, but three classes coming up for the empathetic leadership, and so it's. I've really enjoyed just getting back to communicating with
Okay.
people and
Okay.
interacting.
So let's talk about empathetic leadership. Is that what you
Okay.
call your education?
I guess like I modern leadership, but it's more empathetic leadership.
Okay.
So
And tell us what that means in the salon industry.
so being an empath and being very empathetic, I haven't found a ton of people that are like that. And I don't think empathy is something you can really teach. But I do think that the techniques that I have gotten from being empathetic can really help bridge the gap between our new workforce, which is a lot of Gen Z, and our older workforce. And I think there's a huge disconnect right now because historically, we have, you know, one sorry,
That's okay.
historically, what we've gone through as veteran hairstylists, that made us who we are, right? So like you're going to go through it. And I kind of look at it like, but did you like it? Like, was that good for you? Because it wasn't for me, being forced to do services I wasn't comfortable with, or being spoken to a certain way, or not having a say in anything. So for me, it comes down to even how your verbiage is with the people that work with you. So they are my coworkers, not my employees or staff.
Mhm.
We work together rather than them working for me. Just things like that. I don't often tell people that I own a salon. I work at a salon, and of course, if I need to pull the owner card, I will. If the moment, if I have to pull that
Requires it.
authority, yeah. But a lot of it is. there's actually a girl that works in our salon that a lot of people think actually own the salon over me. And I love that. Like, it's a community space. And I don't believe that, the owner should or is necessarily the face of the business.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of your team.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little tangent, but the class has to do with how to get top talent still, and cater to that younger generation, but still feel like you have your own say and you are the owner. Because at the end of the day, everyone could go home but me, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I get that, but if I didn't work with the humans that I work with, I think I'd be a little sad.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
type of human, I should
Right.
say.
Right.
So,
Right. Explain a little bit of the difference between the new generation and the veteran generation.
as I think a veteran in the industry, I've been doing hair for 18 years, a little over 18 years. So, the hustle culture, the abuse that can happen with wage theft, and you would work as much as you can, you would fit in as many people as you can. You probably didn't get paid super fairly. Uh, those kind of things. The younger generation doesn't care about any of that. They do not care as much about money. They care about, the balance between work and real life. They want to feel part of something. They work very differently. And so learning how to work with that, and how your business, you can still have a successful business, and it doesn't have to affect your numbers. Like, numbers are big. You gotta, be in the green here, or black, whatever people want to say. But at the same time, if you're not catering might not be the right word, but understanding the younger generation, eventually you're going to be left behind. And that's fine. If you want to close out your career, you're working with people you like to work with, you've got like 5 to 10 years left, I get it. But if you want your business to keep going, you kind of got to work with the younger generations, whether you want to or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And so I'll kind of lead into one of my other favorite questions to ask towards the end of an episode, and that is the wave the wand question, which is, if I gave you a wand and you could wave it and change anything about the industry at all, what would it be?
um, that's a hard question. I feel like that's a good question, I should say. Um,
Good questions tend to be hard.
it's hard. Less less abuse, I guess. But if I could wave one thing, it would be um, people having good community spaces. We have studios. Big fan of studios. I think they're great for stylists in our area. We have a lot of people going into studios that don't necessarily want to go into a studio. They want that community space, but there
But there are
isn't.
no community spaces good enough?
Not that they feel they can be themselves.
Not
One
the
that
kind of
I
community they want.
Right, like, you're still, there's someone with their thumb on you. So of course, if you're in a studio, it's completely your own thing. Like, your music, your vibe, your everything, and rightfully so. In a community space, we try and make it so, like, just music, for instance, we shuffle everybody's favorite artist, just
Mm,
so everybody has something. Any decision we make, it's run by everybody. Even if I know what decision I want, like, we try and make it as we cater to our people, because a lot of learning happens there, a lot of community happens there. They find friendships, and again, all this stuff can happen in studios.
yeah,
But in our area, which I'm speaking to our area,
right.
that's what I would change.
Right, got it. And tricky to cultivate a community in such a way that each member of that community is, contributing proportionate to the value they're getting from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when, like, for example, I'm sure that when you're shuffling music that is a favorite of Donna's,
Mm-hmm.
but the least favorite of Janice's, Janet
Mm-hmm.
is annoyed because she hates country music
Yep.
and she's got to listen to it for the whole day. And so, anyway, it's just the interesting part of it all, and and it makes it all the better if you can cultivate such a community, and such a community, right?
And
So
yeah, and
full of
so
people who contribute and build something special.
yeah, in 2022, we started building studios, or we opened studios, and we only had one person from our 22 chair salon, and it's right across the street. Like, you can throw a rock and hit the building. We only
Hmm.
had one person come over from the salon, which was so interesting to see that I would think that they would all be filled with people from our community space, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of our people wanted to stay within that space in their support system because we
Mm-hmm.
most of my job is making sure that our people are caring, compassionate, understanding each other. Any little issues, they will come to me and I can buffer them out and maybe give people some context as to why people react a certain way or whatever. So yeah.
So how much time do you spend doing that versus everything else? Because what you just said can be a full-time job.
It can. uh, I would say we don't have that many issues, so I'm super lucky about that. I feel like again, COVID we have a lot of people that we had during the shutdown still, and that was a huge chance for me leadership wise, and also for them to see how we can work together in such a difficult time. And so, stemming from that, I want to say that like maybe 50% of my time, no, like 40% of my time is understanding my humans. What's going on with you? How
Wow.
are you? What's going on in your life? That kind of stuff to
Yeah,
just get a better understanding of who they are and what they're dealing with.
that's a lot.
Yeah,
That's
it
a lot.
is.
That's great. That's great. Well, any last words for the community?
Just be nice to each other. We're all
That's
different.
what it
That's what
boils
makes it
down to,
good.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, it goes going back to what we were saying at the beginning of the episode with the customer service difficulties and stuff the last couple of years. Harmony was one of the words that I used. It kind of boils down to just being nice to each other.
Hmm. Yeah. We all think
Even
differently.
even if somebody has a different point of view.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to be kind.
No. Well,
For some
you
people,
know,
it probably does.
yeah, for some people, they refuse to be kind if somebody
Yes.
disagrees with them. But yes, I hopefully we get back to that to the value of that harmony.
Hmm.
Stephanie, this was an awesome conversation. I love meeting you, and it sounds like you've got a great salon. And one day, I wish to make it to New Hampshire because I
Yeah,
understand it's beautiful.
it is.
And so it was cool talking about it, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.